You already know who it is. And today we are accompanied with Mr. Gaz. Like a little...
Hello, Governor.
Hello, mate.
Fancy a conversation about putting off at?
Dunno. In Birmingham. Gaz is going to be like our little Jiminy Cricket here. We're going to explore an interesting question today that came out of the exclusive Facebook group. And let's just dive right into it.
So basically, let me just read it out word for word.
Yeah,
I kind of noticed this a while ago, but I tend to realize when things are going good. But when I'm depressed and in a rut, I go on my long streaks. How do I stay motivated when everything seems to be going right and life is easy? This is something I've been battling for 3 years. When everything is going good for me, I tend to use drugs or relapse or go crazy on fast food. End quote.
Right. I think it's been the opposite. I think this is interesting because it's been usually opposite for me. It'll probably be opposite for you, depending on who's watching and who you are. But usually we'll find ourselves wanting to relapse when we don't feel good, right? As a means to escape. Just because like you get an ounce of joy, you get a little bit of joy when you do watch Prawn. So like that is a very and it doesn't cost money to watch it, and it's super accessible. So it's like you can just easily override emotions. But it's interesting in someone such as this guy, how it's the opposite. He is motivated when he feels like shit, when he's kind of like pushed up against a wall, but he completely loses it when everything is like decent in his life and he's not feeling like discontent or negative emotions. I find that really interesting. So I mean, we got a couple of ideas we want to talk about today as to why that's the case. And if you're someone such as himself, if you find yourself in that position, what you can do to improve so you don't keep shooting yourself in the foot when everything's okay, because that's life. Sometimes things are going to be great, and that's awesome. You don't want to be in like this like OCD state where you need negative motivators all the time in order to do stuff with your life. I think that just is going to make you age way too fast. Probably get cardiac arrest when you're 50. Because that's how it was like in school. Like when I was in school, I never had motivation to do shit when things were like decent. Like I kind of was like that as well. But then when like, oh crap, 1 week left for the culminating activity, shit, oh, all of my group mates, they're relying on me, oh god, when all this pressure would pile up, then I would do something about it. So I think this is just like a natural learning phase when you're going from being like a teenage, adolescent boy, turning into like a man where you actually like take action and you have like good habits, and you don't need external forces to motivate you. You can pull it from within. I think it's like if you find yourself in this position, like you don't need to go crazy about it or bully yourself, but it's definitely something to focus on. I would say the best place to start here is really looking at your ambition, the things that you're passionate in life, your purpose, your reason for existence, the why factor behind everything, behind your reboot. That's the first place to like look, because that will be very telling. It's usually, this is the ultimate cliche of all time now. Like I've heard this probably a billion times, but it's true. Why equals how. Okay? If you want to learn how to do something, just know why, and then you'll find the means. Just how like if you want to go and meet a woman, but you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. But if you have the desire strong enough, you'll just go and say some shit. And it's like, okay, well, now you're doing it. Now you're starting it. So, I mean, I think for a lot of us, that's probably the biggest problem is like losing track of your why, forgetting about it, or just like not really having a strong purpose outside of like chasing hollow things and materialistic things, which is not bad, but if it's the only thing that you're doing it for, well, it's all going to fall apart because like sex and women won't make you happy. Money in and of itself won't make you happy. it can bring joy to your life to a certain extent, but it's just like cake. Like eating cake won't make you happy. That's why people form food addictions and become obese, because they're like, I can only be happy when I'm eating cake. And then what happens? You know what happens. So that's probably the first place to start. Look at like your ambition, your drive and purpose behind all this. Like make sure it's spiritual. Like Gaz and I were talking about this before. No fap, whatever, retention, this whole reboot, it's like spiritual in and of its nature. It's a very spiritual experience. That's at least our opinion on it. So that's one of the highest forms of like drive, is that which comes from the spirit, or like the spirit realm. Some people want to call it like energy. But it's just like, it's transcendental. It's like divine. It's like this loving thing, and it goes beyond just like doing it for, just like basic material needs. Not that it's wrong, but it has to be spiritual to some extent. I think that's a good place to start. And then from here, then we kind of go into like what it's like being in the head of someone who, I don't know, who's like around that like 16 to 18 to 20 years old to 21 year old. It can range. It also depends on your circumstance. And I'm going to be making generalizations here, but a lot of this also has to do with just like boy psychology. And what I mean by that is, when you're just a boy, the priorities you have in life, they're not like high level priorities. And the problems that you have are not like high level problems either. And the reason for that is because like the things that you look at, the things that you value, the things you do on a day-to-day basis, like that's the reason why. So for instance, like several years back, if we look at like 17-year-old Daniel, for example, all of my priorities was just like have a good attendance in school, do well on my grades. Okay. Outside of that, I had the luxury and cushion to do whatever the hell I wanted, essentially. And so like food was provided for me. I'd have shelter. I would have like transportation to wherever the hell I want to go. I'd have a good stable internet connection. I hardly would work, maybe 1 shift a week, 2 shifts a week, $40 a week. And then I just had all this free time to do whatever I want, because the criteria was like, oh, you just need to do this much. And like there was no, and everything else was just padded and provided. There was no like friction. There was no like fire under my ass. And in cases where there would be, like then I would do something about it. Like we talked about the school example. Oh, culminating's due. Oh shit, finals are due. If I fail them, I can't go to college. Then my mom's gonna get pissed. Oh, consequences. Okay, got to take action. But outside of that, everything else was really well cushioned, right? Everything else was really well cushioned. So what helped me is removing the cushioning, and it's gonna help you a lot. You grow a lot when you remove the cushioning. So I would watch this interview a while back. It was like this reporter dude was interviewing like a 31-year-old guy who got kicked out of his parents' home because they went to court to kick him out because he didn't want to go. And this guy was not working. Okay, he was 30-something. He had a kid, a girlfriend, but he was not working, and he was just leeching off of his parents for like clearly a decade over. Long due, like way too long. So I'm watching this interview, and I'm just like baffled. This guy, there's just something in his eyes. Something was off. And I think he was just too cushioned, too padded, too cushioned, wasn't in an environment, or, it has to do with his parents as well. I don't know the whole story. So these are generalizations and just like my own, biases, if you will. But he was just a perfect example of like, oh shit, like if you, what happens if you keep going year to year to year with boy psychology? It will take you to like 40-year-old who doesn't do shit with his life, needs his mom to cook him meals, sits at home. Maybe he does a little bit of house cleaning. He's literally just a pet, like a pet at home. It's just like, I don't know. It's really pathetic. Like it's super pathetic. And then look, everyone's different. Maybe someone has a disability. I don't know. But I'm saying if you're like me and you got hands, legs, arms, a brain, like somewhere within the median IQ, like you can do shit. You can do a lot of shit. So it's you don't want to keep aging and still be in boy psychology where you're just like video games. My friends don't like me. Oh, it's like, dude, when once you realize, oh, I gotta make my own food now. Oh, I gotta pay for my own bills. Oh, no one can drive me A to Z. Oh shit, if I don't pay rent, I get kicked out. Like these just normal adult things, it takes you out of boy psychology because now you have drive. Now there's a fire under your ass. Now you're like, well, shit. Even if things are good and I'm cozy right now, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna be cozy the next month, even tomorrow or the day after that. Crazy shit can happen. So I think there might be a little bit of a dissonance, and that's okay. You're growing. Maybe you're 16. I'm not saying grow the fuck up. Like that's not what I'm saying. But once you start transitioning, you got to start making your life a little bit more uncomfortable, and just start picturing what life would be like without mama and papa over you, watching over you. They're gonna die one day, and this leads perfectly into a lack of understanding of your own mortality. Like if you're the youngest in your family, there's a high chance you're going to watch every single person around you die, like one by one by one by one, unless like you don't like get hit by a car or whatever other causes of death. But just strictly talking by the top 10, which is just like illnesses and physical illnesses, like what's it called, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, whatever, lung cancer, you're gonna watch everyone around you die, and that just changes shit. That's just like, well, how am I even gonna be prepared for that? Like the truth is, you'll never be ready until it happens. But it's like, well, I can at least start doing stuff so that like, oh, if my mom were to, God forbid, knock on wood, just something were to happen to her tomorrow, I'm not fucked. Where all I know how to do is just play League of Legends. I have skills and stuff that I can do with my life, so I can go provide and take care of myself. So like, I think like that has helped me a lot. Just understanding that like your own mortality, like the simple truth of like your existence, that people are gonna perish. You can't just be comfortable all the time. That kind of helps. It can be morbid, but like it's not a bad thing. It's just part of life. God gives, God takes, and it just keeps you grounded. So when like you feel really great, you don't just blow off your whole fucking life just because things are cushy. You have a more realistic view. It doesn't mean that you're super pessimistic where you're like walking through the grocery store and like you got to get apples. And you're like, I don't want to spend another 10 cents on apples. Like that's obviously the polar other side, which is unhealthy. But that perception helped me so much. So much. Like I can't tell you how much that has like saved me and saved whatever 30-year-old Daniel, 40-year-old Daniel. So we talked about ambition, we talked about like your current environment, your own like perceptions, just drilling in those perceptions. Really think about it. Maybe you need to spend a day like, man, what would my life be like if like my parents just dropped dead? Seriously, I've had those thoughts, and I've seen like instances that were close to that. So it felt very real for me. I experienced it in my body. So like that's gonna really shake shit up and help you reframe your mindset a bit.
One thing I'll add
yeah.
is for this individual, you can't have a one-to-one replacement with this addiction, right? What's happening is he removes it, but then like, are you adding in between that gap? Because if you don't fill the gap in, you're gonna go back to porn, and that's why you're like, oh well, I'm doing good. I'm bored now. Nothing's stimulating me. Okay, I'm just gonna relapse, and that's the cycle loop he's going through. So it's good. It's a good problem to have because it means you're still consistently, overcoming your addiction, and then you're just having this weird phenomenon where you're just so bored and you want stimulation and you just go back to it. If you can just fill the gap with something healthier or something different or a suite of changes, you won't feel like going back. When you're bored or you want stimulation, you're not going to think of, oh, I can go relapse or porn. You'll find something else that, oh, wait, I can go to the gym or I can, do XYZ. So I think this is usually pertaining to people who are younger who don't necessarily need to be making businesses or like, those high ambition things, but something to think about as we end this off.
Good point. Yeah, you're right. It can never be a 1-to-1. Like, just how, like, oh, you can never replace that one girl you dated. You're never going to find an exact, like, copy of her unless we're living in, like, 2700 where, like, we can photocopy humans and shit. Like, there won't be an equivalent because there's only one person like that. And there's only one, like, the feeling that you get from prawn, only prawn can do that for you. So that's a good point, guys. Like, you don't want to go in the mindset of, like, you can just replace something and then you're totally fine or it's the same, because it's not. It's not. That's just the cost, the consequences, which maybe we can talk about another time.
All right. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Click like.
Smash the like. Or you get coal.
Smash that shit.
Or you get coal for Christmas.
No,
Smash the like. Smash it.